All right, this is part 2 of our little blues porch party, and it literally is in a porch, and it is late summer here in northwest Wisconsin, north central northwest Wisconsin, depends on what part of the state you live in. People get real particular about that too. But I wanted to do this part 2 and just add some more things to it. Excuse the sounds of the neighbors and all that stuff that is definitely here, but I wanted to get this information out. So like, subscribe, etc., and we will talk to you in just a moment. So, want to do a follow-up video to one I did a while ago where I was talking about a real common lick, that kind of a thing, that is a head for several blues songs, or parts of that are heads for a blues song. Also is something that you hear a lot in different country songs. It's borrowed in rock and roll. A lot of different genres that use a similar thing, which really is based on this idea of going, I'm in the key of A here, going from a minor and hammering on the major third. And in this case, sliding up to part of a chord up above that would be the flat 7, major flat 7 D form chord for A in A7. So we have those chords here. Lots of different ways they can be played. If I was teaching that chord, I would do something a little different with it, but just to give you an idea about what it is that's happening here when you go hammer this on. Okay, so in blues, and then all genres that are built on blues, there is this fine line between major and minor. In fact, very often you hear blues players playing major chords with major thirds in them, and a scale, could be a pentatonic, could be another mode that would have a minor third in it. Very often something is done, say for instance we're in the key of A, and if I'm playing and I come up here and I hit a C note and a C, okay, so it's the C note, which is the minor third. Blues players, B.B. King did this, a lot of other people instinctively push it just a little bit towards the major. So instead of not doing just that very clearly going up, the note is pushed up and bent up, usually a little bit towards the major. I call this the tension trigger because that's really one of the things. We have inherent dissonance in blues. That's a major third and a flat 7 played together. We've got A, D, E, all right? But that dissonance is already there harmonically within blues. And as I said, within other music genres that borrow pieces and parts or big chunks of blues riffs and harmony. And again, this can happen in country, rock and roll, certainly, especially the blues-based rock out of the 70s. So those things are important, so this hovering on this line between major and minor, and dealing with the minor third, pushing it up or doing whatever you need to do, that certainly is something that's out there. But there are other things that can happen, and other ways that is handled. So we've got this flat 7 too. So here's what chord I'm playing. Here's an E chord, straight up E chord down here in first position. Here's my major third, If I lower that, that's going to be the minor third, and then of course an E, any D note that I add to that chord, in this case I'm adding a D up here on the B string, would be the flat 7 as well. And there is a common blues riff that from the song Scratch My Back. And what's happening is that I'm lifting up, I'm hammering on the major third from a minor third and adding the flat 7 note, or the D, on top of that chord. That's where I'm ending. And it does that in all three, I'm going to say this, instead of chords, keys. There's a reason why. I've got another video that I'll try to link in the description down below that sort of explains what I mean and why I say that. But that playing in this in-between place between major and minor, you got generally major things happening in the chords, and then sometimes in the scales that might be part of the solos you might be playing, but there's this whole, usually taking that minor third closer to major if we've got major chords, and that certainly is happening. Hammering on a major third, going from a minor up. Actually, that built into the riff itself that becomes the foundation of the song. In the case of Scratch My Back, so check that song out if you want to know how that goes. That becomes very critical. There are other places where this can happen. And there's common riffs, that solo riffs. So in other words, here's an example. I'm in the key of A again. Okay, so something like that happened, where I did it a couple times, where there's the C and I'm adding in the C sharp, which is our major third, the C being the minor third. There was another example. That's the minor third being bent up. It's almost instinctual for me, but being able to do this and to do it with a certain amount of skill and point and purpose becomes really important. There are things like in country, as an example. I'm thinking of one country rock song in particular. I saw that a lot of bands play. So Can't You See by Marshall Tucker. Okay, it's going key to D with a C on the bass, and G. So essentially, the key of that song is already D mixolydian. So in other words, it has a major third and a minor third in the song. That's the first parts of the solo that Toy Caldwell, the lead guitar player from Marshall Tucker, did. In other words, he's starting on the minor third. Okay, that's all in a major pentatonic, but he starts on the minor third, and that's a very, very common thing. So one of the mistakes that I often hear players, aspiring players, whether they're playing rock and roll or whether they're playing country even, or blues, actually playing blues songs, is the biggest mistake that people make is that they will try to play those minor pentatonics over places where minors do not work at all. It could be a song like that, where if you listen to the solo on that song, that is actually part of the head or the theme that is played on the flute in the beginning of the song, and it ends going to the minor, essentially a minor third being bent up, and that's it's part of the minor pentatonic. So, but that happens because, and this is another thing that I will touch on in future videos, that riff is being played over the G 4 chord, which means that the minor third in that key is now not a minor third. When you go to the G chord, is actually a flat 7, and that sounds okay. It gives sort of a bluesy sound to something that would otherwise not be that. So it would be mostly in a major pentatonic, but now is not in now. Well, it is and it isn't. You go into the G means that there are other notes that harmonically would fit. So going back to what I was going to say is that very often I hear players that stay straight up in a minor pentatonic, even when there is clearly a major third that is the primary sound in the chords that are being played. And to my ear, that doesn't work. For skilled players, they take advantage of that and will bend it close. That can happen. Or in this case, go to that minor third over the 4 chord, which changes things pretty significantly in terms of now what that note is with respect to the chord that you're playing over. So I wanted to put that out there and leave that much. Once again, likes and comments are helpful. Please subscribe. I'm going to continue to bring more of this kind of stuff and keep building on the basics here. So see you next time. Talk to you later.